Welcome to the Peopling Podcast, where we hang out with brilliant human beings who teach us how to be better, well, humans, and decode what makes us tick and click. Inspired by the book Peopling, available on Amazon. Let's get this episode started.
Welcome to the Peopling Podcast. We're so glad to have you here. This is where we dive deeper into our human connections, communications, and every season of life. And I'm so excited to introduce you to today's VIP guest. Len Tran is the founder of Kinetic Mind, LLC. It's a consulting firm dedicated to helping individuals and organizations enhance productivity and maintain laser focus on priorities that drive meaningful goal achievement. And with his unique approach to operational excellence, Mr. Tran empowers clients to eliminate distractions and optimize their performance across personal and professional endeavors. Bringing over 25 years of specialized expertise in intellectual property protection at the United States Patent Office and the Trademark Office, Mr. Tran has established himself as a seasoned professional in safeguarding innovation and strategic assets. His extensive leadership experience spans over 19 years, during which he has successfully guided and managed hundreds of employees, fostering environments that promote both individual growth and organizational success. And here's how I know Len Tran. I was introduced to him when he was on stage for his second TEDx. We are both fellow Toastmasters, and he made it to the World Championship of Public Speaking and knocked out 100,000 competitors in this speaking contest, making it to the top 28 at the international conference. No pressure there, right? Extraordinary success. And I got to get a glimpse of your story, and I'm so excited to share who you are with the world. And then we're going to build on that. So give us a little glimpse of your background. You've got an extraordinary origin story. So let's start there. And then I'm going to start picking that wise brain of yours on how we can connect and communicate better. So take it away, Len.
Thank you very much, Kristi. Once again, thank you for having me on your podcast and also introducing me to your audience as well. And what an honor to be here talking to you. And I wanted to start from the beginning, which why it helps me to promote what I am doing right now in the moment. And as a Vietnamese immigrant, especially someone who had to escape his own country due to war, due to the differences in government, and that was back in 1975 when we lost the what we call it the fall of Saigon, and that's when millions of lives in Vietnam have changed. In order for us to even have a meal, we have to hold a ticket to get in line waiting for whatever is going to be given to us. And most of the time when you bring the food back to share with your family, it's not even edible at all. So during that time, it was a lot of chaos. And the only way to find freedom to leave the country was by boat. There's no way to leave Vietnam during that time. And I was one of the millions of Vietnamese boat people. And I have shared that story along the line of Toastmasters and also in my speaking journey as well, and how my father and I endure, along with 25 other people, endure the hardship of being in a boat for 21 days before we were rescued and brought to land. And it's not like we were rescued and brought to America. Actually, we had to stay in two refugee camps. The first one being in Hong Kong for 3 months. And then after that, after that, we were transferred to another refugee camp in the Philippines, where we have to learn a new language, which was English, before we were even be approved to come to America. And so I still remember that very first day when we were brought to New York City. And when I got off the airport, got into a taxi cab with a social worker, brought to the hotel that we first stayed. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. You see high rise everywhere because it was Midtown Manhattan. And I thought, wow, this is just awesome. And it was actually my first time sleeping on a mattress. Now in Vietnam, we don't have mattresses, especially for myself who lived in the countryside. We either sleep on sand or on a concrete floor. And so, even when we were in Hong Kong and the Philippines, we were sleeping on hard surface of a wood panel. So my first mattress was actually in New York City, and it was short lived. It was only that night until the next morning when the social worker both walked my dad and I to our new home, which we had to take the train. Well, in New York City, they don't call it a train, they call it a subway. And we went from New York City, Manhattan, all the way to the South Bronx. And I was like, wow, right when we get off the number 4 train, and you see all this dilapidated buildings and graffiti. This is back in the 1980s, and it was just dirty and filthy. And I was like, oh my goodness, is this the freedom that we actually risk our lives to be in? And then when she brought us to our new home, and I was like, okay, and the home is occupied, and it was occupied by 2 other men. They are also Vietnamese as well, and they were also boat people, and apparently they got to New York City before us, so they were occupied there first. And she said, well, welcome your neighbor. And now there will be 4 of us, 4 of you guys living in here. And it was 2 men plus my dad. And I was the only 8-year-old boy at that time. And I could never forget that day. Right after we had dinner, and one of the men, he looked at me and he said, Len, you want to go treasure hunting? I was like, oh yeah, of course I love treasure hunting. Who doesn't like treasure hunting, bro? So we finished dinner, got out of the building, and he said, make a right turn now. I looked over to my right. I was like, wait, the right, that's a dumpster. And he's like, yeah, that's where you're gonna find all the treasures. And now I finally understood later in the years why he decided to go at nighttime, because you don't want people to see you carrying trash, right? But someone's trash is other people's treasure. And I remember the very first thing I saw was a mattress. I mean, not as good as the one in Manhattan, but it was a mattress that I get to sleep on. I mean, the first many nights you can smell trash and urine on it, but it was the softest thing that I get to sleep in for the first time in my entire life. And and that's just only the beginning of America for me. But being the only child, Vietnamese child, in 3rd grade in that school, elementary school, I mean, even though they prepped us to speak English in the Philippines, but it's very fundamental. Hello, goodbye, and I'm hungry, I need to eat. That was it, right? And I remember when my teacher asked me the very first question, she said, Len, come to the blackboard and fill in this blank. And even asking that, I have no idea what she meant, right? But I can tell based on the gesture. So I got up and I walked to the blackboard. And the question on the blackboard was the boy, and there was a blank, the stick. The boy, blank, the stick. I mean, in the Philippines, I understood what the boy is. I have no idea, what is a stick. And there were 4 multiple choices, right? A, B, C, and D. And I look at the multiple choices. I have no idea what they even mean. And usually when you don't know what to pick, most likely you pick probably C, right? So I picked C. And then she said, C is swallow. Why would the boy swallow the stick? And I would never, ever forget that time where the entire class laughed at me. The teacher spoke a little bit, and it was because of that image. They got into my mind. That growing up, I had this fear of public speaking. I have this fear of being around with people that I am not good enough. Basically, the imposter syndrome. And that transpired all the way to even my professional days. I mean, the reason why I decided to study engineering, because I figured, what, all I have to do is just sit behind a cubicle and just do my formula, my calculations, and not have to talk to anyone. But until I would say in my early 40s, and that's when I decided, I said, this is enough. It's about time where I have to get out of this shell and prove who I am, instead of being stuck in my own mind because of that image that, I'm not able to see let alone, other people seeing my potential, but for me, not able to see my potential, I just have had it. And so I said, I have to get out of this shell. And so that's when I start to improve myself. I start to do things out of my comfort zone. And I finally understood that formula. And that's the reason why I decided to open up my own company to teach people to focus on what matters most.
What an excellent buildup. This is incredible. Thank you, Len. My heart breaks for the young version of you that had to endure so much, looking at the man you are today, to your family and to the people who get to know you. That is some serious character building, right? I couldn't imagine 21 hours on a boat fending for food and water, which I
But,
remember
but
21. Yeah, I'm saying I couldn't last 21 hours,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you lasted 21 days. And you told me that gas and water and food were completely gone by the fifth day. And I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine the thoughts. I couldn't imagine the feelings, the loss of hope, maybe. I applaud you for not giving up. I probably would have given up, like I said, in the first 21 hours. Extraordinary. So I'm curious. Let me start off this way. I think we've all had an 8-year-old moment where we felt shame or embarrassment or somebody laughing at us. And as an adult, somehow we still can go back to that moment in an instant, and it just pulls us back by the ankles and makes us feel unworthy. And I appreciate you sharing that story, because I know so many people went, oh gosh, yes, that happened to me. And why can't I erase that, or why can't I get past that? What was it that happened in your 40s that you think? Like, were you just bored enough? Were you saying, enough, I'm done dimming my light? Like, what do you think was that propeller for you that made you say, I'm going to start living my dreams rather than just living on repeat?
yeah. So being an engineer is one thing when you just work solely in your own project. But when you work with other people, you feel as though there has to be not just only teamwork involved, but then there are times where you feel, okay, you know what, maybe my contribution to whatever to this project can make it even better. But when you reflect back at a time where your life was being impacted by someone laughing at you or someone poke fun of you, then you feel scared. And then now you be like, okay, should I even suggest what I'm thinking in my head? What happened if it comes out dumb and stupid? What happened if they're gonna laugh at me again? I don't want to go and relive that, because it's been so many years that I have to endure that pain in my own head by myself, right? Because really, these are something, when it comes to imposter syndrome, it's not something that you want to share with everyone every single, on days that you feel bad, right? It's basically you hold it in within, and not just only you hurt your head, but you also hurt your heart at the same time, right? So you don't trust yourself, and you don't say things to make you feel better. And until that one day where I said, enough is enough, because I know that I can bring value to this project. Not just only the project in itself. When I got promoted to become a manager, and even though in a leadership role, you are there to inspire your workers, your subordinates, but then at the same time, engineering is different. Engineering is like, okay, you know what? You meet the qualifications, you become the managers, and then you help these guys to do their formulas again. But that's not my kind of mindset anymore. I told myself, I want to be involved. I want to talk to these adults. I want them. I want to give them suggestions, but still have this fear that what happened if it doesn't come out right. And so that day, I told myself, I said, it's okay, because you just never know who you are going to inspire. And each individual, they perceive wisdoms differently, right? I can say one thing to one person, and that person can perceive it like, oh, wow, that's the most profound thing you said. While others be like, oh, no, I totally disagree. But I was able to get out of that kind of mindset that it's okay, as long as I'm able to expand or share my thinking. That should be it. Whether they laugh or not, I can control them. But I know at this moment, I'm going to control myself. And that is, can my contribution be good? I don't know until I say it.
Before we dive any deeper into this conversation, I want to take a quick moment to share a tool that has significantly improved my life, and that's called Growth Day. It's like having world-class mentors right in your pocket. There are daily challenges that help grow your confidence, your inspiration, and your drive. Check out the show notes for your link to a free trial. And don't let another moment pass you by without checking out Growth Day.
So for any of you who have that thought in your head that you are not good enough because of something happened in the past, just let the past be the past and live for the present moment. And we all have something good to say. You might not connect with this person, but you will connect with someone else.
That's beautiful advice. And you have to risk a little bit, right? Not sounding eloquent in that moment or somebody not hearing you to your point the way that you intended. But there's somebody else out there that says, oh my gosh, like I can connect with you and I understand where you're coming from, or you just inspired or encouraged me. I love that. And it is worth the risk. So now in your 40s, you said, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot my life. I'm going to pivot my focus. Is that when you started your company?
Yes, yes. So I started in my mid 40s actually, and that's because I have my daytime job, and there's working at the patent office. Besides that, I asked myself, I said, okay, engineering job would just keep me in front of my desk, but I want to do something where I can expand to possibly the world, right? Because it doesn't matter where you're from. We all have this imposter syndrome in our head, that we think we're not better than other people. And I feel as though that we all suffer something from the past. And I am living proof that, look, something happened to me and I was able to overcome it. So I want to teach people that you can overcome it too. You just have to dig deep, and I don't want to tell people just to be fearless, but be courageous enough that even though it's going to be uncomfortable, but that's the only way that you are going to find your true self.
I love this. Let's unpack imposter syndrome, because maybe a lot of people have experienced it, but may not have named it. And I think until you name it, you can't tame it, right? So maybe somebody's listening to this and they're like, wow, okay, I've tried before to kind of step out and create something, my own business, my own brand, my own something. And people can't see me other than how I've always been, right? Before we started recording, we were talking about a geographic place where you're at, my husband's from, and you asked why he moved away. And I said he couldn't really grow up and grow out of those, high school and younger friendships without leaving town. And sometimes that's what we almost have to do in order to be able to recreate ourselves or step into that next version or chapter of ourselves. We almost have to separate ourselves from the people that have always known us if they won't allow us to grow into a space that's different than how they've always seen us. And so sometimes they pull us back and then we go, well, they must be right. Instead of listening to that inside saying, no, I'm going to take a bet. I'm going to take a chance on myself. So now it's imposter syndrome. I don't belong at this career, or maybe I'm not good enough for this promotion, or all of those fear-based questions that start showing up and getting in the way. And then we kind of pull back into that comfort zone of where we've been before, and we stay safe and we dim our light and we just go through the actions. So if we get this wrong, if we just stay complacent, right, we're not contributing to the rest of the world with our God-given gifts. And our gifts are meant to be shared, right? Not just held onto and hidden. What would be your number one advice to give to somebody that's saying, man, I really want to. I want to bet on myself. I want to morph into this next version. I want to take a chance. And I believe in myself. I believe I can, but, right? And then fill in the blank with whatever fear. What would be your best advice to inspire, encourage them to take that leap?
Yeah. So I stumbled through this quote. I can't believe I forgot the name. But basically the quote is, your life doesn't ex- your life expands or shrinks in proportion to your courage. Right. And so let's rewind it back a bit. I mean, when I mentioned that, I was being laughed at kids. These kids are 8, 9 years old kids, and including my teacher. That pretty much right there, I thought I would never, ever going to be in a public eye again, let alone just stand there and do a speech. But yet, the day that I decided to join Toastmasters, I just only want to improve my public speaking skills. I just only want to stand in front of a group. Now, in Toastmasters, we have, if your audience don't already know, we have this first speech, what is called an icebreaker, and all it is you tell about your life. I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna stand in front of the audience 4 to 6 minutes after I introduce about myself. They you're just gonna clap and that be it. Just to overcome that fear of stage fright, right? But when the president of the club came over and asked me, and he said, "Hey, Len, you should compete for an international contest speech." I was like, "Ah, what is an international contest speech?" I'm in Toastmasters just so that I can learn how to tame my legs from shaking and my heart from pounding, just to stand up here and staring at 15, 20 of you guys. What is an international Toastmaster contest? But it was because of that quote, right? It was because of your life doesn't expand or shrinks in proportion to your courage. And I was like, yeah, I'll compete. But that's the funny part. My mouth said I compete, but my brain was like, what are you saying, Len? You're nuts. So I was like, you know what? It's too late. I opened my mouth and I said yes already. And I got home. And I prepared like crazy. And the worst part was, instead of asking other people at the Toastmasters Club to let me know what is exactly an international contest speech, I got home and I searched on YouTube, and I was like, oh, wow. So international contest speech is basically just a motivational speech that you have to deliver within 5 to 7 minutes. The only problem with that was when you go on YouTube, these videos are high caliber speakers. I'm like, these guys are like top 8, right? Or even semifinalists, out of, like you said, 30 to 100,000 speakers, and they got themselves there. And I was like, no way. No way I'm going to get myself to this level. Now my brain wants to slap me around and be like, why did you say yes in the first place? But you know what? I was glad that I did, because once you say yes already, you hold yourself accountable. And you just got to do it anyway. And I keep on telling myself, and if I'm going to feel uncomfortable, I'm just going to make sure that I'm prepared for it. So while during the day, I'll do my work, but right after 5 p.m. when I get home, it was just nothing but pure practice, pure writing my speech, and refine it day after day after day, asking my friends, asking my wife, what do they think? And I refine it. I would say at least 2 months before even the first contest, which is only at club level. But that was the amount of preparation I put into it, so that I can get out of that feeling uncomfortable. I think the best way of not feeling uncomfortable is to prepare yourself. And so I said, once you decide already to make a change, you have to accept that the obstacles are there to instruct you and not to obstruct you. And I'm glad that I did. And look, 5 years later, I made to the semifinals. So just because of just one decision that came out of my mouth, but did not sink with my mind. But I'm glad that I took initiative and just said yes.
I love this. So I'm just going to unpack it, because this is the way I extract meaning from you. You're one decision away from creating or owning your dreams, right? And when you say yes, I don't remember who said it, maybe Zig Ziglar or somebody really incredibly important. When you make a decision, everything happens twice, right? It happens in the mind and then it happens out into the world. But you have to say yes first. And you said yes to yourself even before the physiology was able to catch up. So I love that. I love that your mouth went without getting permission from here, because your mind probably would have come up with 500 different reasons of why you're not good enough, you're not ready, you're brand new, you're not a public speaker, and the list would just continue. But you said yes. And then you did the most important thing anybody could do, which was prepare. And I think that if it's something that you're passionate about, if it's something that drives you, if it's something that's worth exploring, become obsessive about it. You came home and you spent hours and you asked your friends and you asked your wife and you asked your family for being your audience, right? I love what you just said, because that could transcend into almost anything in our life, isn't it? Toastmasters is just the analogy of anything. So if we're wanting to take on a new side hustle, pivot into a new career or a new relationship, move to a new city, here's what I heard. Decide, say yes before all of the fear can get in there. Say yes, and then it happens in the mind, you'll deliver it to the world, and then start into your preparation. So you started putting together your whole business, right? So you're preparing before you ever left your day job. I love that, because sometimes I see people jump out before they're really ready, right? You don't have enough of a foundation or network or whatever that case is. When you're working with the businesses and the professionals are the people that you get to coach and consult and help them find the best versions of themselves. Is there a pattern that you see that the typical mind creates that usually trips us up? I love where you said it's an what did you say? Instead of an
Obstacles are there to instruct you, not to obstruct you. Yeah.
instruct you and not obstruct you. I think that's beautiful. I will forever remember that you said that. That is very powerful. Is there something that you see that is a pattern in a lot of people that we see as an obstruction, and then you can flip it on its head and show us that it's more of an instruction?
What I've learned throughout my years, when you're young, you probably don't do it as much. But as a professional, I've seen it more, and that is comparison. You always compare yourself to other people. And it's kind of funny you asked me this question, and actually, my next international contest speech is it's about that. The message here is comparison kills confidence. And what I find is, as a professional, every time when you're in a meeting, you always hear someone. There's always that one or two people who always raise their hand, always have something to say in the meeting, and then you probably feel as though, well, they will probably be the ones who's gonna get promoted, and maybe not me, because I do have something to contribute. But it seems like they just eloquently put whatever that they shared, in the meeting so well received by the boss. So I'm probably not gonna chime in, and that's the problem. The problem is we compare ourselves so much, and we forget what we can bring to the table. It's like we're never going to find out our best version, right? Because if we not going to share it in a meeting, the boss will never know, right? I mean, yeah, it's nice sometimes you probably hear in a meeting too, where leadership nowadays, they know that, they are extroverts and they are also introverts. And boss would probably say, for those of you who are not feeling comfortable sharing your ideas in a meeting, just go ahead and send me an email. What I've learned is this: if you don't share, your boss won't know. If you have to send in an email, it's not as effective. That's what I've noticed too. I think it's better when you just share it in an atmosphere where all of your colleagues are able to hear your thoughts as well. Because once they hear your thoughts, they be like, and this goes back earlier when we discussed. Once they hear your thoughts, they probably like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't realize Len is pretty darn good with whatever he just shared, right? If we can all get out of our mind and stop comparing ourselves, stop comparing our ideas, but to think of it as I'm contributing to whatever it is to make it even better. That's the way that we're gonna be our best version. If this is what I train professionals on, is how to muster that courage and to share ideas, because we are all unique in our own ways and couldn't care less if the other person is better than us, or don't be too arrogant and say, hey, I'm better than the other person. Just be neutral and contribute, to your organization or even to society.
That is such great advice. Not to be humble and quiet and think less of ourselves, but also not to be prideful and boastful and I'm better than anybody else. What a great balance to try to work towards striking towards. It's solid advice. Somebody along the way had said when I was catching myself, comparing myself to other people, they said, compare yourself to who you were yesterday. If you're going to make any kind of comparison, is have you leveled up in a way that you want to? Have you prepared the way that you want to? Are you studying and chasing after your next goal at the pace that you want to? And if not, make some adjustments for yourself so that you can get to where you want to be at the time frame that you want to be there. And I thought that was such solid advice because you are uniquely and wonderfully made. And I am uniquely and wonderfully made, but we're made exactly the way we are for our own purpose in our contribution to the world. And if our fear is keeping us from opening up our mouths, well, then we actually can't fulfill our purpose. And I think that might be where a lot of people might be kind of swimming right now. We're going through the actions of life. We're showing up to our jobs, or we're checking off the boxes, we're doing our things, but there's not a lot of purpose or passion there. Maybe because we're scared to share it I love the advice that you just shared with us. What are a couple of maybe like actionable things, maybe a mindset shift? Like if I'm going, okay, I'm struggling with imposter syndrome. I'm scared to speak up because I am surrounded with people that feel more powerful or empowered than me at the boardroom table. What's something that could help me build a little bit of confidence so that way I can build that courage to say something? Is there any kind of coaching that you do for yourself mentally to kind of put your head in the game, in the space, right?
So my first book, and I delivered that at the TEDx talk last week, was a memoir. And in the memoir, I wrote about how my dad and I and 25 other people, stranded for 21 days. But then after I finished the memoir, then I asked myself, I said, what are the things that I have learned during these 21 days at sea? And what were the things that I've learned growing up in New York City? And so that's when I wrote my second book. And in that TEDx talk, I was talking about how I have this fear that who's going to read my book? I'm just an engineer, I'm not a writer, right? And then now I end up writing two books. The second book, the title is Break the Bricks, and it's learning how to break through these elusive bricks, which is the bricks is basically fear, self-doubt, judgments. That how can you break through the bricks in order to find the real you, right? And the way to do that is you have to be enthusiastic and you got to be curious. For me, when I decided to open up my company so that I can help people focus on what matters most, I was like, you know, I'm enthusiastic and I'm passionate on building people because I have seen people with just so much potential, but yet they are afraid to speak because they just don't like to be in front of the public eye. And I have this curiosity now that I said, okay, let I mean, I know what I went through, and I went through hell for many years until I finally mustered up the courage to join Toastmasters and to compete. But also every individual, have gone through their own paths and their own journey. But I'm curious to understand what was it that actually held them back. And so after talking to many different people, they all say the same thing. It is because of feeling that fear. So whether you have a fear of rejection, even nowadays you hear it too, fear of success, or fearing of not being accepted. And so I came up with what I wrote in this book is the reason why we have fear is because our plan is not clear. Right? We have fear because our plan is not clear. So let's say if you want to open up a restaurant, a business, why are you afraid? Because probably your plan is not clear. You don't know the path you're heading to. So I came up with an acronym called RISE. In order for you to overcome fear, you have to rise, right? And the rise, the R stands for recognize. You have to recognize what is actually holding you back. You have to recognize in order for you to revitalize. Recognize what's holding you back. And the I stands for initialize. People always talk about, look, I want to do this, I want to do that. But you are sitting still saying you want this, you want that. But it's not going to happen until you stand up and move. You got to initialize. You got to take that step, right? Because motion creates momentum, right? Without motion, nothing's going to happen. The S is to strategize. Many people would think that, okay, if I'm going to keep moving, I'll probably get there. Not really. You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy to get there. You just cannot get there blindly. It's not going to work that way. And the E, last but not least, is you got to be energized. You can recognize what you need to do. You can initialize by moving, you can strategize. But if you don't have that energy, right? If you don't feel enthusiastic every time when you about to execute, you're not going to go anywhere. It's just like having New Year resolution where I say, okay, I want to lose some weight. But if you're not excited to wake up every single morning for the next 6 months, it's not going to happen. So being excited, being energized is so crucial in order to carry the first three letters.
It is so great and something I think that every one of us can go back to and say, okay, I'm going to use this as a measurement, right? If I'm really passionate about something, this is what I love. I love acronyms. It's something that I can go back and reference. So thank you for sharing that. And every single point, I'm like, yes, yes. And without all of those in the recipe, we can't create that success that we're trying for in our lives. And each one of us have a different definition of success, right? You get to define it, but you have to have the strategy, you have to have the energy. I love that. Thank you, Lynn. It's super. Well, we're coming to the time in our time together where it is the Be the Change challenge. So I want to ask you, can you give our listeners and our audience one actionable step that they can take and put into their sphere, their world, where we can better humans with better connections and better communication? What's one thing that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
So I don't think we mentioned in the beginning that I've practiced martial arts for the last 35 plus years. And even though at the TEDx, I talked about how my teacher, my sensei, who told us, Don't wipe your sweat because sweat is a distraction, but it's something that if you can tame your distraction, then you can tame your inner mind." But I'm going to change a little bit because I am a martial art enthusiast. I love watching Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee is all about water, right? Bruce Lee would say, water can flow or water can crash. Be water, my friend. And so this is what I want to leave with your listeners. Be water. Keep flowing. Don't be stagnant, because the only way for you to see the other end is you have to start from this end and keep flowing. There will be rocks, there will be barriers, there will be all kinds of obstacles that will be there in front of you, holding you back. But you know what? Water can just flow around it and continue flowing. So be water, my friend.
So good. I'm going to walk around saying that. I be water. I'm water. Be water. People are going to be, what are you talking about? I'm like, lean in, listen in. Let me tell you what my wise friend here shared. That is extraordinary. And I could literally feel the energy flowing through my body when you were saying that, to be water. And I could see the water going around the rocks, like exceptional imagery there. So thank you so much. Len, I am so appreciative of the wisdom that you shared with us today, with your personal story that is inspirational, encouraging, extraordinary. If I think for a moment, like I've had a tough childhood or even a tough day, I can think back to your 21 days in the hot ocean sun with no food and no water, with complete strangers and next to no hope of what's to come, and be truly inspired. So to see where you've come with a beautiful family, an incredible career, business helping people ultimately hit their definition of success, on main stages, having to overcome the fear of ridicule and shame and laughter that you unfortunately had to feel as a traumatized 8-year-old who's just learning a language. My goodness, my friend, you are a true inspiration. And I thank you for sharing that inspiration with all of us right now. So thank you for being here. I'm going to make sure that we have your contact information in the show notes so people can pick up your book, connect with you on social, and also follow your journey, because something tells me that your public speaking, your competitions may not be a thing of the past. I'd love to see you on that main stage with the big trophy, winning first place, because I've listened to you deliver incredible speeches, and that's next. I just, from my lips to God's ears, that's next. So you be our inspiration with keep chasing after what the big dreams are, right? So thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here with us. And thank you to all of our audience. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the Peopling Podcast, and grab your copy of the Peopling book on Amazon, and let's keep this connection movement going. Until next time, be curious, be kind, and keep peopling like you mean it.